I love pina coladas, getting caught in the rain, and planning for vacation, which is why I love to use Notion to plan every aspect of my trips. Today I'll show you how I fully plan for a 3-week international trip using just Notion. Alright, let's start in my personal dashboard. I love this thing. It is very me, very bright and colorful. When I scooch down to the life domains, and I have a travel area, so I'm going to open that up into a full page, and this is where we will be spending most of our time today. This travel section is split up into 3 views. At the very top, I have a gallery view of a database where I keep all of my upcoming trips. We're going to be spending most of our time here inside this page for my Japan 2025 trip. So up here on top, the first thing I do is collect all of my flight information. So you'll see that I'll be doing 3 different flights for the entire trip, starting in Washington, D.C., going over to LAX, from LAX to Haneda, and then from Haneda, a direct flight back into Washington, D.C. Inside these toggles, I have all of the pertinent information for that flight. The airline, the flight number, the date, all of the usual things that you'll want to keep handy, but I also have things like the seating arrangement and the specific plane that I'm flying, because I'm one of those nerds that likes to look up the specific plane and see which seats are best, where the seats are in relation to the bathroom and the exits and all that fun stuff. Because I like having all of this information in one place, I keep these toggles here for each of the flights. So I have that information for my next flight as well as my last flight. And just so you know, I'm not putting all of my information out there on the internet. This is actually a modified version of my real itinerary, but I changed some names and dates for privacy. Here I have a section for essential information. This is an international trip, so I have to get an electronic SIM card so that my phone could work out in Japan. So all of the information related to that device and my subscription is in this page. I also have important information about my train pass, since that is how I will be getting around Japan. I have all of my Suica card numbers, and the confirmations for my Shinkansen tickets are all in this train pass information page. I also have a page dedicated to my husband. Now, I have been obsessively planning this trip for several months, whereas he is joining the party late in the game. He probably wouldn't even be able to tell you what cities we're going to visit. So I have this shared page where I'm dropping in little bits of information or possibly questions that I have for him, or little tips and tricks about what we're going to be doing in Japan, so that he can read it over on the plane ride there. I also have a section here for expenses where I'm tracking all of my expenses so far. And since I haven't yet left to Japan, I am simply writing down all of the costs for the reservations and the things that I've paid for so far, so that I could have a general estimate of how much the trip cost. Since shopping is a major part of this trip, I have a shopping list here for things that I want to pick up while in Japan. I also have some additional tidbits of information, how you say and spell my name in Japanese, as well as my husband's name and our last name. So I just have all of the pertinent information that I might want to access quickly or in hurried situations, like if I need to pull up my train pass number or information in the airport. I want that to be front and center, which is why I have these front and center in this Notion template. In my basic template, I also prioritize information related to transportation and hotel reservations. That's all front and center with easy access. The next part of this page is a calendar. Since this was a multi-week trip, I thought it was really important to have a good visual so that I can understand the flow of my vacation. Having a calendar really helps me map out my vacation. I also really like the form factor of the Notion calendar for vacation planning specifically, because you can move around these little tiles from date to date. It was really helpful when I was starting to plan out what I'm actually going to be doing on a day-by-day basis. When I first started to plan my trip to Japan, I just had a long list of things that I wanted to do, and I just started to list them on all of the Sundays. And over time, as I started to understand neighborhoods and what was close to what, and I started to think through the attractions and activities that I wanted to do, it was really easy to just drag and drop them into the applicable days. The other reason why I really like to look at a calendar view for my vacation events is that it gives me a visual representation of the pre-work that I have to do for different vacation events. For example, here you'll see that Harry's Cafe, this is an animal cafe that has a fennec fox, so I'm very excited to come visit. And you'll see that you can book tickets 10 days in advance. So I have this calendar set up and I can give myself a reminder to book those tickets 9 days before. In this reservation tab, I'm going to have all of the relevant information for making that reservation. Sometimes it's just embedding the entire website. So here I know that I can click in, see their YouTube videos. I can also click here for reservations. Everything is in one place. Since I'm interested in a reservation for a Michelin-starred ramen place, I also have an individual card reminding me when I can make a reservation. Once I click into that card, I have embedded a quick link, so it's just a single click and I can walk through and easily set up my reservation. Once I have a reservation, I make a new card in the respective date for all the reservation details. Here you see that my reservation is fully confirmed and booked. I have the reservation ID and confirmation number, and I've also added a little URL where I can click in and pull up a Google map that'll give me step-by-step instructions on how to get there. My goal is to make my vacation as easy and stress-free as possible, and there's an added psychological benefit to taking the time to fully plan your vacation. There's a concept in the happiness literature called the savoring effect, which is the short-term joy and long-term benefits that you get from the ability to pause and fully appreciate a positive moment. The joy that you get from actually doing an activity is called consummatory pleasure, but there's also anticipatory pleasure and the pleasure that you get from reminiscing or remembering positive experiences. Part of the joy of going on vacation is planning through and thinking about the vacation beforehand. That type of positive anticipation could actually have similar neurochemical markers than actually consuming the pleasure or actually going on vacation. So planning this vacation has become a little bit like a hobby for me, and it brought me a lot of joy to fully plan out my experience. This is just one way to approach your vacation, and it is definitely not everyone's cup of tea. Let me show you how I arrange the tiles within each of the days. I started each day with the mode of transportation. If I had a flight or a train to catch, that's going to be put front and center on that day. So for the 10th, that is when we're flying over to Los Angeles. All of the information related to the flight is in that tab. There should also be another tab, which I'm going to add right now, for our hotel information. And I'm going to tag that as hotel, take out the flight, and I'll be able to fill in that information after I'm done filming this video. We are actually flying there late into the evening, so when we land, we'll go straight to the hotel to go to sleep, and our flight leaves around noon the next day. So I'm going to add an additional attractions page, and I'll actually fill it in with the individual morning activities that I want to do in Los Angeles. You can see that the next day I start with a taxi to the hotel because we will be sleeping on the plane, and then when we get in, it's actually going to be the next day in Tokyo. So the first thing we need to do is take a taxi from the airport to the hotel. Then I have all of the hotel information here. If you click on this, I have the hotel information, including my reservation information, and a map that's going to link over right to the hotel so that when I land, I can actually show this to my driver and give him the Japanese address to my hotel, and I can also follow along as we're driving from place to place. So having this quick link serves multiple purposes. I'm going to click out of there, and next up you'll see that I'm reminding myself to make a reservation. This must be for a reservation later in the week or later in the trip, but I'm reminded to make that call. I have all the information related to making that reservation already in that page. Moving on, I have shopping that's on my list for day one. I have the 2 individual stores, and if I click into that, I've embedded the Google map into this page, and I also have the URL that I can easily click and again get that turn-by-turn instructions. I have the same for the stationery store that I want to visit and the bar that I'd like to attend. When it comes to bars and restaurants, I've also linked their Tabblog page. Correct me if I'm saying that incorrectly, but this is a restaurant rating site that's popular in Japan, and I hear from the YouTubers that I've been listening to that it is a little bit more accurate than Google reviews or Yelp. Now for the next day, since I'm not taking a flight or a bus or a taxi anywhere, I just have locations that I might want to visit early in the morning. In the off chance that we get to see slight early blooms of the cherry blossoms out in Japan, I want to make sure that we do get a chance to pass by this specific park, and we also have tickets to attend some timed attractions like Team Labs Planet, which is very popular. I have all of the information related to my reservation as well as how to get there and all the necessary directions. Since this is my first time in Asia and the first time in Japan where there's a lot of different temples and parks and shrines, I really wanted to remind myself of the specific shrine that I was going to on any given day. It's similar to when I went to Italy and there were a lot of churches and museums that I wanted to see, but they started to blend together after a while, so I wanted to remind myself of the unique features of each of these specific attractions. So inside the pages for these types of attractions, I've included a little picture so that it jogs my memory on the specifics of this particular temple or shrine, and I also have little notes to myself. This temple tends to be pretty popular during the day, and I am going to go at night so that I have a different experience of the temple and have a little bit more space to myself. I also have a Google Images search so that I can remind myself again of the specifics of this individual location. Since this temple doesn't require any reservations, I don't have any additional information. I've identified a restaurant where I want to eat dinner as well as a nightclub that I'd like to attend. I think I'm getting right at the edge. Like I'm probably even past the age where I should be going to a nightclub, but I can't pass up the opportunity to go to a nightclub in Tokyo. Being from New York City and experiencing New York and LA, and I'm also on vacation with just my husband, and usually we go on vacation as a family with our teenage son. So I think it might be interesting to try to get in one last hurrah at the nightclub. So I have this here as a potential, and I also have other potential clubs that we could go to at different times during our vacation. But I have this here basically as a placeholder, like if we feel like doing a nightclub this day, this is an option. You'll see that every day I try to have one outdoor activity, like one park or shrine or temple, something that we can do outside, one timed attraction, and one dining experience. The next day, my husband is planning on getting a haircut, so I'm going to change that from flights to attraction. So the next day we're going to get up, rent a bike over to the botanical gardens. He also has a haircut scheduled. I am going to go to a nearby store. We also have plans to go to a nearby shrine, and we have dinner reservations. So I'm trying to balance not having every hour of the day planned out, but having just enough that we have a general skeleton of how our day is going to go, and we're trying to hit 2 or 3 things a day, but allowing the flexibility to be able to add things or move things if we need to. We're doing several day trips during our 3-week time in Japan. So when we have a day trip, I start off with listing where we're going. And in that page, I'm going to have information related to the tickets, as well as a list of attractions that I want to do when I'm in that place. The attractions are also listed out as individual pages in that day. So there is again this one outdoor activity where we could potentially see some cherry blossoms. There is the timed event for Harry's Cafe, and there's an untimed potential shopping trip at the Red Brick Warehouse, and there's also a museum in town, and if we have enough time and we feel like grabbing some lunch in the Couple Noodle Museum, I just have that there as mostly an option, not necessarily an edict. And you'll see the same pattern moving from day to day. The next week I have information specific to our trip moving us from Tokyo to Kyoto. I'm going to have the same reservation information related to our hotels. When we do have a timed attraction, I'm going to have the tickets, the reservation number, and a link to the Google map all within that event page. Moving down to our last few days there, you'll see that here on the 25th, I've listed 4 nightclubs. We're definitely not going to 4 nightclubs. This is just an example of how I'm putting in a bunch of options, and I know that we might do one, we might do none, but I want to have easy access where I can click in, get a little bit more information about the place, and potentially make a decision depending on how we're feeling that evening. All right, enough of my calendar. Let's move down to the third section of this page. I have a menu where I've been collecting information on different things. For example, I am really interested in shopping for secondhand luxury goods. So I've been doing some research on where I can shop in Tokyo and in Yokohama for secondhand luxury goods. I have all the information that I've gathered here in one location. And the same could be said for other things like the stationery stores. I also have a list of places where the cherry blossoms might be in bloom. So I've been gathering up information slowly over time and putting it into these pages so that I have little reference materials when I'm sitting in the hotel or trying to decide what we want to do the next day or what we want to fit into the day. When we have some white space, I have nice reference material that I can look back on. Speaking of reference material, you'll notice that I have a lot of links to Google Maps. I've been gathering pins and locations around Japan so that when we're out and about and we're going from one activity to another, we can simply pull out our phones and see if there's anything that we're interested in or anything that's on our bucket list that's nearby. Let me show you how that works. I have a saved map right here for Japan 2025, and I've saved 75 places. Now, I don't think that we're gonna go to all 75 places, but again, I like having the references in the event that I'm in the neighborhood and I wanna see if I can squeeze in an activity that I'm interested in. You'll see that they're all over the map because we're gonna be spending some time here in Tokyo, some time in Kyoto, some time in Osaka, which is around here, and we're also going to be down in Hiroshima one day. I am going to zoom in here to the Hyatt Centric in Ginza, where we'll be staying our first few nights. And you'll see that we have these little flags everywhere. These flags right here are places that I have saved. And if I click into this list right here in Tokyo, I can see the entire list of things that I have saved. And if I wanted to see where the Casetify studio was, I can just click on that and it is going to zoom me in, give me a little picture of the Casetify studio, and also show me where it is here on the map. This has been super convenient for me because whenever I hear about a location that I might be interested in, it's really easy for me to just save it into my Japan map and think about where it might fit into my scheduled events, or potentially just leave it on the map. And if we find ourselves in need of a new activity, we can just pull it up on our phones and see which of our saved locations are nearby. Back to the Notion template, I love me a list. And I have two columns of lists in this section, a prepping list and a packing list. The prepping focuses on different time intervals, starting with the start here list, which is what you want to do as soon as you've identified a trip. So first I develop a loose agenda, I put in leave requests at work, I book my flights, and I started to work on this, so I've clicked off when I actually book all of the individual flight segments. I want to book hotels after I have developed a loose agenda and I knew that I was going to be in Ginza, Tokyo, and Shibuya. I had to book hotels in each of those areas. Then I'm going to look for flights. I also have this little reminder to see if I have enough airline miles to pay for the specific flight that I want. I can also set up price alerts if I am looking at flights way in advance. For this Japan trip, I was able to set up a price alert so that I could monitor the cost of the trip. If you haven't already, you can take this opportunity to register for TSA PreCheck or for global entry if you're doing an international trip. I have a separate reminder that you may be able to use loyalty points to book your hotel. I have book your reservation in the event that you want to do that. For me, I also have individual things that I have to do, look for a babysitter and a dog sitter. I also take this time to set reminders for myself for the next intervals. So I set up a reminder for 1 month out, 1 week out, and 1 day out. So I remember to use the actual additional list that I have within this template. I also have a start here for international travel. Things like look at your passport, get a visa if you need it, research local customs. I'm really glad that I did that because some over-the-counter medicine that I use regularly is actually illegal in Japan and required special clearances. So I'm glad that I looked into those customs, and also consider currency exchange if you're going to a place where you need actual cash, or you can simply start getting a handle on the currency exchange rate. 3 months out is the list that I use the least frequently because usually I know that I'm traveling a good amount in advance or I have to travel like immediately for work. So if we are about 3 months out, this is when you might want to consider actually purchasing the ticket, actually booking the hotel, booking any kind of local transportation. I think this is also a good timeline for booking things like a house sitter if you need someone to come by and pick up your mail or water your plants. 3 months out seems like a good time frame for me at least. 1 month out is when I do all of my confirmations, and this might seem like a little bit of overkill, but someone like me who really cares about the plane and where I'm sitting, I really want to make sure that I am getting what I paid for. For example, in the second leg of this trip where I'm flying from LA to Haneda, there was actually a change in my plane and a change in my seats, and I had paid for these very specific seats, so I was able to change to a different comparable seat. I also want to do things like confirm my hotel. I travel a lot for work, and every now and then the hotel will just say, we are renovating that month and we've canceled all of the reservations, but nobody told me because I made the reservation in advance or too soon. So it helps, for my peace of mind at least, to do a confirmation for the hotel, the car rental. I also remind anyone that's helping out with things like childcare or dog care, I just give them a little reminder and also confirm, hey, are we still good to go? A week out, which is where I am right now, I'm very excited. Consider reminding your boss. You don't have to, because when we were at the very top here for start date, I did put in like my official notice that I was going on vacation, but sometimes it's helpful if you remind your boss that you are going to be leaving. I confirm any care that's related to like living creatures, like my son and my dog, because I really cannot leave until I know that my son and my dogs are cared for. So I do a double and triple confirmation. If you're wondering, my in-laws are coming to take care of my son for these 3 weeks. I am very excited. He was totally invited, but he is one of those kids that refuses to leave school for any reason. So I have agreed to take him to Japan as a graduation gift in 3 years, and he has decided to stay home with grandma and grandpa. I'm sure he's very excited about that as well. If you have a bank that requires them to be notified of international travel, this would be a good time to do it. It's also a good time to start checking the weather so that you can finalize your packing, and also to buy any of those final items. I try to give myself a hard cutoff for getting things from Amazon or ordering things for a specific trip about a week out. So that is the last thing that I do about a week away. There is something else that I have started doing, and that is mock packing. Since I have been traveling mostly carry-on only, it can get a little challenging, especially if you're going for multiple weeks at a time. So I do have this mock packing section that I added here, and that's when I actually pull everything out and try to pack it as if I was leaving the next day, just to see how I can configure everything and how it all fits. The day before travel list and the day of travel list are my favorite lists in this template, because I don't know about you, but I am super stressed out the day before I'm leaving, and the day of, it feels like I'm forgetting 20 things. So even though they're small lists, they really help me feel in control. So the day before, I'm going to check into my flight. I'm going to download the airline app. I'm going to check all of my electronics and make sure that they're all plugged in or fully charged. I am packing my carry-on bag, which is usually things that I have used on a daily basis or potentially like I couldn't pre-pack. I also sometimes print and download documents to physically have them with me, especially if I'm going on an international trip. I don't know if I'm going to have any hiccups with my eSIMs or with getting online. So I want to make sure that I have some printed documents, at least for the first day or two of activities. Definitely hotel information, especially in countries where they use a different alphabet, because it'd be pretty hard for me to write it down. I'm also gonna walk around and secure the house. I'm gonna buy any last minute snacks that I wanna take with me on the plane. And I'm also going to identify a specific area where I'm gonna put my daily use items. That's things like my toothbrush or my face cream, things that I have to use until the very last minute. I just want to have a specific hub so that when I use it, I put it back there and then I pack it all up from that location right before I leave, which is what I have in the day of travel list. I check my flight status. I have my digital boarding pass. I check for those things that we definitely don't want to forget. So I'm checking for my ID card. I'm checking for my passport if I'm going internationally. I'm checking for cards. Do I have my travel credit cards with me? Did I pack all my chargers? What about those things that I used this morning? Did I pack medication? I am really paranoid that I'm going to lose my keys while I'm traveling, so I need to put them in a very specific spot, like some sort of inside compartment all zipped up, and I don't move them at all when I'm on any kind of trip. That way, when I come home, I know exactly where my keys are, because for some reason I'm just paranoid about losing those keys. I always arrive super early to the airport, and it helps that I have travel credit cards that allow me to have lounge access, because I feel so much better when I've just have my eyes on the gate and I'm already in the airport. All of my stuff is through security. I just want to arrive as early as possible, so I have that reminder to me in my prep list. My packing lists are something that I've been working on for years, and I'm really happy to finally have it in a place where I don't think about it, I don't second guess myself, I just know that if I go by my packing formula, I'm gonna be okay. Now, most of the time I use this packing formula, which is the formula I use for carry-on only, and I have individual add-ons depending on the nature of the trip. But for this trip, I'm using a list that I rarely use called Do You Really Need to Check a Bag? Now, I really do, because part of why I'm going to Japan is on a stationary shopping trip, as well as a little finding myself, because I am going to be between jobs right now. We'll talk more about that later, but let's stick to Do You Really Need a Check Bag? This is my larger packing list for trips that are lasting more than 14 days. Let's start with the packing pre-check. So I asked myself, how many calendar days am I going to be away? How many workouts do I plan on doing when I'm away? What are some of the specific daily activities that I'm going to be doing? And also, what's the general weather going to be like in that location? After I go through this packing pre-check, I have a really good idea of whether or not I could do carry-on only. I also have different lists for whether or not I'm going to be traveling for less than 7 days and less than 3 days. So this pre-check is going to help me identify what packing lists I need to use. Since I'm going to be going for more than 14 days and I have a lot of activities, I've decided to go with Do You Really Need a Check Bag? And that packing formula is as follows. There's 7 undergarments, that's 7 pairs of underwear, 7 pairs of socks. I'm going to do 7 tops, 6 bottoms, 5 layering pieces, that's things that could go under or on top of a specific top. I'm going to have 4 occasion pieces or wild cards. Occasion pieces are outfits that I need for a specific event, or wild cards if I'm not going to specific events that require specific outfits or have a specific dress code. These are just any 4 pieces that I want to bring into the capsule. I'm also taking 3 dresses, 2 workout outfits, and 1 pair of pajamas. Then I have this little accessories section where I'm going to bring 4 shoes, 3 bags, 3 individual accessories, 2 bras, 1 black and 1 nude, 2 pairs of leggings or stockings, 1 bathing suit, and 1 lounge outfit, which could also be my travel outfit. I've also identified over the years a full list of toiletries, and this is assuming that they will have nothing at my destination, which is not the case in Tokyo, so I'm actually going to be bringing less than this. That's okay. I don't need to bring everything on the list. I would just rather have a more complete list and then choose not to bring things than to not have a list and potentially forget something that I actually want or need. I have my full list of makeup. Again, this is assuming that I'm going to be wearing makeup. This is everything that I would want to bring with me. And I have my personal items checklist, which are the things that I'm going to want with me in the plane. That includes noise canceling headphones, my computer or my iPad, all of the things that I need to clean my general area and to feel comfortable during my plane ride. Here at the very end, I have prep videos, and these are videos specific to my location or what I'm doing. If there are any informational things on YouTube, I could embed them right here into this page, and then I have easy access to them. I really like the channel Kencho Quest, and they have a few videos on what you need to know before you come to Japan. And I've also been studying Japanese for the last year and a half. So some reminders about pronunciation or things that might be helpful for me to practice before I go to Japan are included here in this prep videos section. Now down here I also have additional reference videos. So I have videos related to shopping, videos related to specific attractions, food related videos, and a bunch of nightlife related videos. Since I know the least about that, I have a lot of videos in that column. All right, let's get to some fun stuff or potentially some really extra stuff depending on how you feel about this level of planning. I do have a slide here with my outfits. Now this is the same thing, it's just two ways of looking at the capsule that I'm bringing with me. I have all of my individual clothing items arranged by color so that I know what kind of color palette I have. Sometimes I have a little pie chart with a distribution of how many colors I have. Let's see if I can find it. Here's one with the pie chart and the color distribution. Seeing all of my individual items in this way clustered by color helps me confirm that I have a cohesive capsule wardrobe. And here at the bottom, you'll see that I have the individual clothing items arranged in that packing order. So I have the 7 tops, the 6 bottoms, I have the 5 layering pieces. Here are my 4 wild cards. I have my 3 dresses, 2 workout outfits, my pajamas. Here is my accessories little capsule, and this is my 1 lounge or travel outfit. The other thing I like to do that's just for fun is these bingo cards, and it's just a fun activity that I like to do with my husband and my son. When we're going someplace, I like to make little bingo cards for the individual locations that we're going to or things that we want to do when we're there, and I put it in a bingo card and then we see who gets bingo first. I've just made a little database with different foods that we want to try when we're in Japan, and I will make these into bingo cards before we leave, and then we can play bingo throughout our vacation. I'll also be building one for attractions or individual things that we want to do while we're in Japan, and I'll make a bingo card for that. That's it. That's all the plans that I have for my upcoming Japan trip. If you've stuck around to the end, I would really love some feedback on my travel template, which I'm planning on having as my first paid offering within the Productivity Psychologist website. So the first 5 people to download the template will get it totally for free, and the next 10 people will get it for, let's say, $5. All I ask is that you provide some feedback to the email address that's listed in the template and let me know any ways that I could improve the template or any bugs that you found as you were playing around with it. If you're curious to see what the plain template looks like, I'm going to walk you through that now, and I'm also going to show you how you can totally personalize a page to meet your travel needs. So this is what an empty template looks like. Here you'll see this vacation planner. The best way to populate a new trip is to simply go to these 3 dots and duplicate either the basic template or the complete template. If you're interested in the basic template, you just click into that and you'll see that it looks a little bit different than what I showed you in my video today. You have a section here for travel to your location, for your lodging, for your transportation, and for your travel back home. If you're doing a trip where you're just going to one destination and coming right back, the basic template might be all you need. There are those travel checklists that we have in the more complete set, including starting here, then 1 to 3 months out, 1 month, 1 week, the day before travel, and the day of travel. You also have the packing lists here, including the packing pre-check, toiletries, and makeup lists. The reason that you don't have the individual packing lists is because those are listed here under packing lists. That way you can identify which packing list suits your needs. Do you only need 1 to 3 days, 3 to 7, 7 or longer, or do you need the checked bag list? There's also these flex items, and they're individual items that you might want to add if you're doing carry-on only. For example, if you're going swimming, you might want to add a swimsuit, a cover-up, a wet bag, and sandals. If you're doing something that requires evening wear, don't forget your dress shoes and your evening purse. So these are just some add-on items that you can use to augment your base packing list. Then you have a calendar that you can populate with any of the events for your travels. This complete travel template is going to look very similar to what we reviewed together. This is the one that I used for Japan. I did add these 4 blocks up here for your travel to and from, as well as your lodging and transportation if you want to have it all front and center. I also have the flight information, and if you click down on this toggle, you will have all of the information for the flight, and you can simply duplicate that one line to accommodate how many flights you have. Essential information could be listed here with an individual page, and I do have an expense account and a shopping list. The menu that you can personalize and add pages for things that you've been researching for your trip. Here are all the prepping lists that we discussed today in the video, the packing lists, and a section for you to put in your own prep videos. If you'd like to add any YouTube videos, I also divided this into 4 sections. You could, of course, change this to anything that you'd like and embed the YouTube videos right under that. There's a section here if you do plan out your outfits or make bingo cards, there are individual sections there. This template also has all of the additional packing lists, so the long one, the 7-day one, the 3 to 7 days, and 1 to 3 days packing list. In the event that you want to make a totally new page, you can just hit new page and you have your custom trip, and you know that you want an international packing list. You know that you are 1 month out, and you are going to want the 1 week, the day before, and the day of travel list. All you have to do is click on that button, and that's going to generate a new iteration of that list. And you simply drop it in there. Now you have the international list, the 1 month out list, the 1 week list, the day before, and the day of travel. Some people just like to do it one at a time, so they can just click we're 1 month out and it will generate a new iteration of that, and you can drop it right in there. If you don't need to do the pre-check because you know where you're going, how many days you're going for, you know the weather already, and you just want the packing formula, you just want carry-on only list or the really long list, you can click on that button and it'll generate that. So I'm going to drop carry-on only in there, and I'm going to delete this. I also know that I'm not swimming, so I don't need that. I am going to have an elegant evening, so I'm going to click that, and you can just drag it right into custom. And when you click onto this page, you'll see that you have all of those lists here ready and waiting for you, and you can customize this page however you see fit. The last part of this template is something that I didn't show you on my personal account because I have all of my personal information for all of my airline loyalty points, my hotel loyalty points, rental cars, all of that I keep in this database. I keep it organized by individual airline or hotel, and since I generally travel with my husband and my son, I have these set up for 3 people. You could always delete individual lines or edit that as needed. I am super excited to share this travel template with you, and I'm also super excited to start to get feedback on some of these products. I know several of you have asked if I am going to have my complete life operating system available as a template, and I'm working on it. The current iteration that I have is just so personalized to me that I'm trying to make sure that it can be generic enough for other people to use in their life areas and in color schemes that might work for other people. Not everyone wants neon Lisa Frank colors in their face, but it is something that I'm working on. If you're interested in learning more about my Notion setup, or if you're generally interested in how to live a productive life without sacrificing your mental health, consider subscribing to this channel.